Jim Harbaugh has spoken very highly about this offensive line, and the main focus of this offensive line, at least from the outside looking in, has been on that right side because obviously Trey Pipkins moving into the right guard spot. Joe Alt was just drafted at the 5th overall selection to be the right tackle of the future. But what people aren't really looking too much into right now is the left side of that offensive line. We got Rashawn Slater coming back kind of from injury. He played through injuries throughout the entire last year, but he's a top tier NFL left tackle. We know that. What we don't really know is Zion Johnson. What is he going to be? He played 2 years already in the NFL, hasn't really lived up to that first round expectation the way that Rashawn Slater has. So my question is, with Jim Harbaugh developing offensive linemen everywhere that he has gone and having a dominant offensive line by the second year of every team that he's been on, can Zion Johnson be unlocked by Jim Harbaugh? Now, I went back and watched a ton of Zion Johnson, both his rookie year and this past year, just in order to answer this question of whether Jim Harbaugh can unlock Zion Johnson's full potential. Because Zion Johnson, he's got a very high ceiling. He's an extremely athletic offensive lineman. That's why he was drafted in the first round. And he also has some dog mentality, which we will get into here. But you would either be encouraged by his tape or absolutely hate it, depending on how you view offensive linemen and what you want from them. And let me explain exactly what I mean, because there were plenty of plays throughout both of his seasons where he would just get beat initially on that, initial contact with a defensive lineman. And then he would either lose in, a pretty bad fashion by being thrown around or knocked off balance in some sort of way, or he would be able to recover and anchor himself really, really well. And that ability to recover and anchor yourself is a skill set that a lot of people want in NFL offensive linemen nowadays. And not a lot of offensive linemen have right now in the NFL, but it's definitely a skill set that coaches are looking for, and it's a very valuable skill set to have, especially considering how good defensive linemen and edge rushers are nowadays. Now, Zion Johnson has allowed 33 pressures this past season and only gave up 4 sacks out of those pressures. Now, part of the reason for that is because obviously Justin Herbert's escapability and being able to throw out of the blitz, that was on full display last year. I mean, you would be hard pressed to find a play where Justin Herbert is not running for his freaking life because of that offensive line. But also, it's because there were tons of examples of Zion Johnson just being able to work past getting beat on that initial contact. So this is Zion's rookie year, and this is a really good example of him getting beat but then being able to win in that pass protection rep. So here he is at right guard going up against the Raiders, and you can see this defensive lineman, he does a nice job of shimmying, getting into this gap right here that is open, using that arm to swipe away Zion Johnson's arm that has him on the chest right there. And you can see it works. That arm, he re-engages it to the lower part of that chest as soon as he gets past his face. And now you just ride him out and you just slide him basically away from the quarterback. And you can see Justin Herbert now has all of this space to work with because Trey Pipkins and the tight end are working on Max Crosby over here, riding him all the way out towards that really wide spot on the right side of the line of scrimmage. And we have Zion Johnson riding out this guy who, pause on that one, but he wins in this pass protection rep after losing initially right here because you just get your entire weight and you slide him away. That is how he recovers and wins in this rep. Let me show you how he anchors. Now, this isn't a great example of how he anchors himself, but this is definitely what he does. So he's at left guard, second season, week 14 against the Broncos. You can see the initial hand placement here. It's too high and he gets beat, gets pushed back a little bit, and then he re-engages his hands. You can see he moves it down lower towards the inside chest of that defensive lineman. And then now look at these feet. He's anchored himself right here. Now the defensive lineman has to go around him because he can't go through him. and then you just push him out of the play. Again, you're riding those defenders outside, trying to slide him away from your quarterback. He does that really, really well at a high level. Let me also show you this play, because this is another really good example of how he keeps his head on a swivel, because this is something that he was really, really good at. You can just see him looking all around for action, and then he goes all the way towards the outside edge of this play to pick up that linebacker. That's something he was really good at doing, is keeping his eyes up in action, but also sometimes he got beat in that area. Like right here, this is crunch time against Miami. Towards the end of the game, you need to win on this drive. Zion Johnson, he's looking towards this right side because we got all of these defensive linemen here, the linebacker, this edge player coming in, but you can see this DB is blitzing on this left side. He even looks over, I think it's right there, he looks over, but he is assuming that the running back, Joshua Kelly, is going to pick that man up. He doesn't, and he picks up Christian Wilkins on the stump move while Joshua Kelly is like releasing on a pass. So I don't know what this is, just really a miscommunication more than anything. But you can see Zion Johnson, he does have his eyes up. Look right there, he knows that man is coming, but he decides to go for the defensive lineman rather than the DB that is blitzing. Ends up not really even mattering because Trey Pipkins lets up the sack with Jalen Phillips before that DB even gets there. But that's a double sack because the DB would have gotten there if Trey Pipkins didn't get beat. This one is crunch time again, and he does a really, really nice job of keeping his eyes up and noticing where that stump move is coming from. The Cowboys bringing a lot of pressure here. They're bringing this defensive lineman, flying him towards the inside, and having this other defensive lineman swinging out towards the outside. You can see Zion pushing, riding that man into Will Clapp, and this running back releases, and Zion Johnson immediately disengages. Look at the ground that he covers. Boom, kick step back right all the way back there. But if I go back to this spot right here, you can see with this other man that he just basically pushed into Will Clapp trying to help him out. Will Clapp can't do anything else after that, and then he just gets beat by that man. And the DB is also coming in on the blitz right in Justin Herbert's face, and you can see he gets hit as he's throwing it to Quentin Johnston, which it's never a good idea to throw to him in his rookie year, and it ends up being intercepted, and that's how the game ended. In his pass set, he had really good hand usage and kept his head on a swivel at a very high level. He was always looking for action. Now, in the run game, Zion Johnson, he was a really great combo blocker, particularly on the weak side. That's where he was really doing a lot of his best work, and he gets out in space really, really well. He's a quick mover. He's looking to bury somebody into the dirt when he is used either as a pulling guard or just kind of climbing to the second level. Specifically in that Vikings game, he was like out for blood in that game when he was being pulled. Sometimes he does struggle with getting his hands on those speedy defenders out in space, but you know, every offensive lineman is going to struggle with that because they're just naturally not as fast as like a nickel defensive back. The most important thing though is eating up that space, and Zion Johnson, he does that well, and he does it quickly. Jim Harbaugh, he's going to love utilizing Zion Johnson in the run game, and there really isn't a ton of negative in his run game. I mean, when Zion flashed, it was mostly in that run blocking ability where he was showing off his athleticism. And when Gerg Roman says that like it can get medieval in that interior offensive line spot, watching Zion Johnson, he is definitely able to get medieval in there, both in the run game and in the passing game. And he showed it off both areas. He can get nasty, man, and he can finish some dudes off. Like, pause on that one. So Zion Johnson, he has struggled so far in his career, but he has also flashed some really, really good play. So the main thing that I think he needs to work on, those inconsistencies in picking up the stunt moves, keeping those eyes up. He's really good at that, but being able to pick up that action is what he needs to work on a little bit. Winning on that initial engagement with the defensive lineman, that is something that, you know, obviously you're not going to be able to need to recover if you win on that initial engagement. And then sometimes he would try to recover and then he would get some handsiness, you know, he would start holding, which that got him into trouble sometimes last year. That's why he had 6 penalties. But, you know, Rashawn Slater, he's another guy like that who kind of relies on that ability to anchor and recover from that initial push from an edge rusher. And he had 8 penalties last year. So that's just kind of sort of, I guess, the negatives of that play style. But you know what? I came away from watching Zion Johnson thinking Jim Harbaugh is going to love getting to work with him. He has all the physical tools, an absurdly high ceiling, and this is a guy who is an extremely intelligent person. I mean, he graduated from Boston College with a degree in computer science. So football is not going to be too complex for this guy. And also, if you did not see my video yesterday, this one's not a very complex video. I just went through the film breakdown on how good Ladd McConkey is as a route runner.